Good morning. Good morning. There we go. Sorry, my microphone was busted there for a second. Hey, Stefan, how are you? Good to see you, man. Well. Uh, no, I'm here, man. I'm here. I slept in a little bit. You know, it's Saturday. I feel like I feel like I deserve a little bit of time in bed. Yes, morning to you as well. It's the weekend. We are free from obligations. Have I tried Arc Raiders yet? I don't think so. What is that, Arc Raiders? Arc Raiders. Multiplayer Extraction Adventure. Oh, it just came out. This is a new game. This looks pretty cool. Server Slam. Oh, it's still not out yet, coming October 30th. So how did you try it already? Super good game. Oh. Oh, because it's the Server Slam. You can dive into Arc Raiders on PS5, Xbox Series X, Steam. It's free to play for the weekend, and it's our last big push before launch. I'll have to try this. I bet my kids would kind of like it. Is it third person? All right, see you, Steven. Have a good day, man. Thanks for the recommendation on the game. Yeah, it almost looks like third person or something. That's cool. All right, well, I know what I'm doing with part of my day today, I guess. Trying Arc Raiders. Well, I don't have a real serious agenda for today. I guess the first thing I want to do is I want to take care of the housekeeping stuff. So let me pin a message. Excuse me. All right, so we got the pinned message. I'm gonna go make an event in Discord real quick. How do I share? Share. Hello, I love lamp. Adair. Lampadair. Thanks for being a member. Man, we've had 2 members here this morning. That's awesome. I appreciate you guys who are members. There's only 7 of you, I think, on planet Earth right now. You're an illustrious company, or an illustrious group. It's lamp, but wait, did my no? I think something on YouTube's end changed, or maybe a setting. It's not your on my end. I see your username now, and not your display name. And I don't know if that's something that OBS or um, yeah, I don't know. It used to always be the display name, and that changed real recently for me. Could have obviously been something I did, but hello, lamp. Let's see. How long are we gonna stream till? I say we stream till like 8 a.m. ish at least. We'll see how long. It's Saturday, so I don't really have a reason that I have to get off stream. It's more of just like when my family gets up. So we'll see. Probably till at least 8 a.m. 5:35 a.m. I don't know. All right, here we go. Oh, vacation for you? Nice. Yeah, that's awesome, dude. Vacation's a blast. We haven't taken really any vacations this year. I'm looking forward to Thanksgiving though. We've got holiday season coming up here in the States, so we have Thanksgiving. We have basically Halloween at the end of the month, Thanksgiving in November, and then Christmas in December, and then obviously the New Year at the end of December. So we're getting ready to go through it. I'm actually debating on. So where I work, we have unlimited PTO, and which is awesome. However, I'm bad about remembering to take it, I think, because of that. And I was looking at my stats a couple weeks ago, and I think I've only taken four official days off this year. And so I was kind of thinking, okay, well, I need to increase that, right? Because like if you work at a big company, typically you get 4 to 5 weeks off, and you kind of use them or lose them type of thing. So I was like, maybe I should take off like every Tuesday and Thursday till the end of the year. So basically just work 3 days a week. I'm not sure. I think my boss would be chill about it. I just need to sit down and actually put in the PTO time. Okay, so I don't know. I don't have a super. Let's see. Oh, let's see. I couldn't watch the stream yesterday. What you do? Like Google, I'm pretty sure it's 10 days. Laugh my fucking ass off, as in like days taken. Yeah, negative 10 days. Yeah. Let's see. Stream yesterday. Basically, what we did was we sat down to work on this Casper app, which is like this LLM powered ghostwriter thing that I've been working on, and then we got completely sidelined by not a bug, but a limitation of one of the dependencies in my app. So I'm using there's basically two libraries right now that I'm using pretty heavily in this application. One is obviously the new agent framework that Microsoft released. So if you're new here, haven't been here, we've been working on I should get better about that. I should remember that not everyone here has been here before, and so I need to set the context. So what we've been working on stream is this application to essentially make it a little easier for me to be able to generate blog posts. If you're familiar with this concept of like a ghostwriter, so a ghostwriter is sort of like somebody who's a professional writer, but their name doesn't go on things they actually write, like they typically write for other people. And so we've been working on this application to basically have my own personal ghostwriter, but like not pay a human being, instead just use an LLM. And so this is kind of the workflow that we're trying to build out in this application. And to build these agents that you see on screen that I have mocked out in this diagram, we're using this new framework that Microsoft released called Agent Framework. And it is for the, you can get it for the Python ecosystem or the .NET ecosystem right now. Those are the two supported languages. And so we're using this library to do a lot of the orchestration and the creation of the agents, or organization of the defining of the agents and the workflow. But we're also using this really cool open source library to talk to the Gemini API, because that's the model provider that I'm using. And it's a good library. They just built this and published this not too long ago, a little earlier this year. And so we found a limitation in this library, basically. So I got completely sidetracked about fixing this limitation, which I think I actually have a fix for it. So I think that's what we're going to start with today, is finishing the fix and opening a PR in this repo. And then we'll go back to working on my application. So long story short, that's kind of That's kind of the context for the stream. What's up, Veds Improv? Good to see you. Yeah, that installing a malware dependency would be really shitty. So hopefully that's not a thing. By the way, Stephen, how much work do you think is left for this project? As in how much time to complete this? Probably. I mean, honestly, if I wanted to speed run it, I could probably complete it in a day. You know what I mean? I've just kind of been taking my time, only working on it on stream, and so if I stream for like 3 hours, I might actually do an hour of coding, which means at this point we might have 7 hours into this application at this point. So there's probably it really, you know, that's one of those things with estimates. This app could probably be done like in a 2 or 3 hour sprint, right? Because it's not super complex. Like we're just making a bunch of individual API calls to an LLM and then stitching all the inputs and outputs together. So, I don't know, maybe a couple more streams and then call it good. I mean, it's one of those things where like we could iterate on it and work on it for a long time probably. What I'll probably do is I'll probably get it to like a workable state and then I'll start using it for a little while and see how well I like it or don't like it and then go on from there. Hey, what's up, Artwork Studios? How are you, man? Good to see you. Had a long day today. Well, man, I'm glad you're here. I'm hoping it was a good long day, not a bad long day. Let's see. You weren't online yesterday on here. I was online. Yeah, I was, but I was live. I was live super early, like 4 a.m. Oh, I think you were talking to Artwork Studios. Sorry, my bad. All right, here we go. I think I'm actually going to use VS Code today. Okay, so we're not going to work on Casper yet. We're going to work on Gemini.net. And so we are going to... Ooh, this is small. All right, we are gonna work on this. I gotta run upstairs and use the restroom really quick. I know, but it's. I mean, when you sit for long periods of time, I am gonna roll an ad, so I get it if you guys need to duck away for a second. But I'll be right back. I'm gonna roll an ad, and then I'm gonna use the restroom, and I'll be BRB. And I probably should put a message up. Let's see. How do I do this again? Split pane up. Split pane up. BRB. Nature calls. How do I do? I want to increase that. All right, I'll be right back. Ad's gonna roll. Watch your ears. I'll be BRB. I made it. I'm back. I'm alive. I'm dead again. No, really, I'm alive. Let's see. Control Shift W. Oh, we're using VS Code today. Alright. So we're gonna try to fix this bug. But I think it's gonna be a pretty straightforward solution here. What I miss? How had you been? I've been good. Yeah, man. There's like nothing. There's nothing in my world to really complain about. You know, I'm healthy. My wife's healthy. My kids are healthy. Like that's number one. That's like the first thing. Everything else is kind of icing on the cake after that. Have a decent job. Have running hot water. You know, all that stuff. Okay. So here's the bug that I'm trying to fix. So I've kind of written some test cases out here, but essentially, if we open up, we're going to open up a file called schema. Let's start with schema. So what this piece of code does is it essentially takes a JSON schema and it translates it to an Open API schema. So if you're not familiar with Open API is just a way to document the contract of your API. It's fairly similar to JSON schema, but different. But different. But it supports similar functionality. However, doing this conversion from JSON schema to Open API schema is necessary, or was at one point necessary, with the Gemini API, because that's whenever you're doing structured output with the Gemini API, that's how it wants the output defined, is using the Open API schema. So whoever originally wrote this library did the work to basically do that translation, which is awesome. However, there is one snag as under the hood. Let's see if we go to, I think this guy. Yeah. Under the hood, I'm realizing there's a lot of context here that you need to understand what's going on. But under the hood, what needs to happen is essentially, because we're working with the agent framework and we're using with this third-party Gemini.net library, is there's some mapping and some conversion that has to happen between the agent framework types and the type that the underlying provider accepts. And there's a common layer of abstraction between here, right? There's like a contract that you can program against, which is great. However, under the hood, the Microsoft library, it uses a what is it called? It's like JSON schema exporter is the class name. And so there are times where the schema that is generated and handed off to this library produces what are essentially references. So in JSON, if you're not familiar with JSON schema, you can basically save yourself from having to redefine things over and over again, and instead you can use references, which are basically like pointers to other things in your schema file. Let's see if I can find an example of this. I'm sure some of you know what I'm talking about, but for those who don't, an example would be good. Let's see, $ref. No, that's not what I want. $ref. Declaring, let's see, creating a schema definition. Yeah, that's fine. Like, this is how you do a definition, right? but you can reference existing definitions using a ref keyword. So instead of redefining a schema again and again and again, right? Like say you have a person schema, right? You can define that once and just point to it. And right now, the library I'm using doesn't handle this use case well. So if we run through this set of tests that I've set up, let's see, let's go to schema. And let's jump down here and we'll put a breakpoint in here somewhere. Let's put a breakpoint. I don't know. We'll just put a breakpoint like here. And we will debug our tests, which the debugger is going to look really ugly because I'm working with such a tiny window. But we should be able to see, let's see, type property is, yeah, okay, so we'll just step through here. We're basically going to step through here until it throws. Yeah, right here. So you can kind of see this is what I'm talking about. Right, chair. See that? So this is basically the schema saying, hey, instead of redefining the schema for the items in this array, we're just going to point to another place that's already defined the same schema, the same structure. This code, though, doesn't handle that case well, so this should throw now. When I step through, this will throw, I think. Or at some point, it's going to throw. There we go. So it's going to throw, and it's going to say the given key was not present in the dictionary. And that's because we're trying to get a property named type, and that doesn't exist. Because if you're using a reference keyword as your schema definition, you don't have a type property. And so the way I'm going to fix this is a little, I couldn't come up with a better way to do it. So, or at least I couldn't come up with a better way to do it based on the constraints. So basically what I'm going to do is I am going to, conceptually, here's what I'm going to do. I'm basically going to resolve that reference path, right? So if I have a schema here, and I have a pointer, so we'll say this is how do I, there we go. This would be schema definition. And then if this is a pointer, I'm basically going to get that reference or that pointer, right? The $ref. And I'm going to inline the schema definition that it's pointing to. That's basically what I'm going to do, right? So I'm going to resolve the ref path to the proper schema that it's pointing at, and then just stick that in where the pointer was in the original schema. And so we need to implement some code to do that, and we need to make a few modifications to the existing code to do it. So the way he originally implemented this code was, you basically pass it the JSON schema as a JSON element, which if you're not familiar with C# or .NET, a JSON element is just like it's a piece of a JSON document, right? It's either an array or it could be an object. In this case, it's basically almost always going to be an object. And then what he does is he goes through and he figures out, okay, what type is this current element describing, what schema is this current element describing, and then he converts that from the JSON schema to the Open API schema, and he's defined a few classes to be able to do this. And eventually what this does is it recursively walks the JSON schema, right? So it comes in here, and then it determines what type it's currently on, and then whatever type it's currently on, it calls the schema's create method, and within some of these create calls, there is then a further recall back into this method. So you end up with this recursive call stack eventually resolving out, right, to a base case, either a simple one of these simple primitive schemas essentially, right? Because the only ones that you really need to recursively call through are arrays or objects for the most part. And in order to make this work, all of the paths all the pointers, all the JSON pointers that I get are going to be they're going to be absolute paths, meaning I need to be able, whenever I encounter one of those ref paths as it's making recursive calls, I need to be able to resolve that path against whatever the top level root JSON element is, right? So what I'm going to have to end up doing is I'm going to have to end up passing through all these method calls, all these recursive method calls. I'm going to have to keep track of whatever that first root element was, so that at any point in the call stack, I can resolve a path based on that root element. I realize some of this probably sounds a little bit like crazy talk if you're not super familiar with JSON schema, but basically that's what we're doing. Basically, we're basically going to implement the ability to take a JSON pointer, which is basically a path that tells you how to get to a particular object's property in a JSON a JavaScript object notation object, and extract that from it. So I've got a few different cases set up for this. So if we go to JSON element extensions test, you'll see this is the test schema I'm going to use. It's pretty simplistic. I have a few different definitions, and then I have this one user reference, which has a pointer ref, which that's not particularly important. And then I have some test cases here that I've set up. So these are the paths that I need to parse. Right here and right here. And then I just need to make sure that whenever I parse these paths that I get the right result, right? Either I can't find the element, or the element is found. And there's a couple different edge cases. Like this is an edge case where we have to escape these little tilde characters. Or what's the other edge case? There's another edge case if there's another special character that has to be escaped. I can't remember what it is. But yeah, that's what we're gonna do to start the stream off today, and hopefully it doesn't take me too long to do this, but we'll see. Okay, so let's open up our actual implementation, and we'll go to JSON element extensions. No, I think I put this in the schema file. Yeah, so we're gonna use a try get reference signature, and this is always going to be not T but JSON element. Actually, I should probably wrap this so that's a little bit easier for us to deal with while we're streaming. All right. Okay, so this would be our root element, right? So I'm basically defining this as an extension method just to make it just as like some syntactic sugar. But basically we'd be calling this on our root element, and then we would be trying to get the target element, or the element that the path resolves to. And so if we run our tests, we should find that all of them fail. They should all fail horribly because I haven't actually implemented anything. So let's open the test explorer, JSON element, Why are my tests not coming up? Maybe I need to build the solution. It's kind of weird. .NET build. See if this works. Hey, Ducky Dev, what's up, man? How are you doing? I don't know why my tests aren't showing up. Yeah, I'm missing like I'm missing an entire project of tests. But I don't know why. Okay, we got this properly marked as theory. It's got class data. Let me just try to reload. When in doubt, reload the window. OBS is acting up. And it reconnected. Okay, so I don't know why it's not finding my tests. Maybe if I edit this file, it'll recognize it? Or what if I just what if I just put fact on here, will it recognize it? I mean, I don't have to use VS Code to run the test, but it'd be kind of nice to be able to do that. I'll just run it from the command line, I guess. That's kind of annoying, but what are you gonna do, right? Let's see, failed 35. Oh yeah, this guy has some integration tests in here, so you can see he expects you to set an API key to run some of these tests, but oh, that's because, okay, hold on. I can never remember how to filter tests with the .NET CLI, .NET test filter. Let's see, I want to do it based on method name. Let's see, test category. Can I do it based on method? .NET test filter method name. Let's see, option with the display name. Okay. Let's see. Stephen Paidborn. What do you... Stephen Paidborn? What do you think are the cons of Windows 11? I've switched to Linux today because Windows 10 is losing support. Oh yeah, that's a thing. Somebody actually, I posted a short the other day about Windows, about developing why I'd use Windows, and someone commented on it, was like, "Hey, what do you think about the fact that Windows 10 is losing support?" And honestly, like, I don't have a ton of feelings about that whole thing other than it sucks. I mean, it sucks. Like, I have a couple MacBooks I have one MacBook Air that's too old to get updates now. It just sucks. It's like how technology works, right? In a lot of cases nowadays. Um, I think that's awesome that you switched to Linux. I don't think there's anything wrong with Linux. The benefits for, I guess, a Windows 11 machine for me is really just familiarity and comfort. There's likely, if I had to guess, and this is again, I've never really had a Linux machine as a daily driver. Obviously, I've used a few different GUI environments. Reciprocal, thanks for the subscription. I appreciate you. Um, so kind of take this with a grain of salt, but I would have to imagine there's probably some hiccups I'd run into getting my same kind of desktop environment, all the different applications and things that I use on my Windows machine set up on Linux. Um, I hear it gets better and better. Like, I hear nowadays you don't have to build as many applications from source to use them on Linux. There's much better support for a lot of applications, which is wonderful. But for me, I think, yeah. So I think for me the main benefit is just familiarity, comfortability, and then probably less time spent finagling with setting things up. But I would like to do a Linux. I would really like to try that Linux. It's not really a distribution, but it's like a flavor of Arch Linux that DHH has been. I mean, he created it, or now he has kind of a community around him, that's helping him do it. But basically, I think they took Arch Linux, and I think they took some sort of GUI technology. I don't really remember, Hyperland or some one of those. I think GUI technologies, and basically they've kind of created their own, almost like their own distribution. Like, it's not like they have their own version of the kernel. They're using, Arch as the basics. But this, I've watched this YouTube video, and when I was watching it, I kind of really fell in love with like the aesthetics and the visual appeal of it, and it definitely has me convinced that I need to try using Linux as a daily driver. So I think the next laptop I buy, that's probably what I'll install, more than likely. The only thing I don't like about Linux is that there's not much support for apps. Yeah, see, that's the biggest. There's actually a YouTube creator that I follow pretty closely. His name's Forest Knight, I think, or at least that's his YouTube name. I think, I don't know if that's like his real name, Forest Knight. And he actually did a setup video maybe 3-4 months ago where he kind of talked about that exact thing. Um, where he basically explains, like, he's like, I have two machines. I have one machine that's for coding, that's like a Linux machine, and then I have one machine that's for kind of content creation and productivity stuff, which is a Windows machine. And his explanation was largely what you said, where there's just better support on the Windows side of the house, or at least better support out of the box without a lot of finagling to support some of the tools that he uses for content creation and productivity. And so he has two separate setups. Now, I don't want two separate setups, really. I don't need like 10 machines that I have to take care of. So just having the one Windows machine that I can both develop on and make things on is nice. But obviously, I would like to experience the greatness that Omarchi, I think is how you say it, has appears to be. I don't know when that will be, because I just, the last computer purchase I made was a NAS computer, or it's a network attached storage device, but it's basically like a little mini PC. It's got a case, and it's got bays for hard drives, but essentially the brain of it is a small little mini PC that lives inside of it. So That was my last hardware expense, so I probably need to wait a couple months before I travel back down the hardware road. Yeah, I wish you all the best on your Linux endeavor. Apologies that Windows 10 dropped its support. That does kind of suck. All right, let me see if I can get this to work. So I want that. Cloudy Dev, thanks for subscribing. I appreciate you. Arif, appreciate you subscribing, man. It's very kind of you guys. Let's see, JSON element extension test dot. I only want to run that one test. And it's trying to run other things. Did it even run my test? Well, let me look. Try get reference. Okay, it did run my test, so at least we know it fails. Invalid reference without absolute path. But I'd like to be able just to run that one test. I don't want to have to worry about continually running all the tests. And this really should be trivial to do. I don't know why VS Code is being such a pain about it. Okay, what if I just... Okay, let me delete all this. Or maybe I just comment it out. GC... I'm trying to see if I can force the text explorer public void test. And Copilot's really annoying me. I'm gonna toggle Copilot off. I wonder... Toxic? Hello, Toxic. How are you? One sec. Sorry, I'm... Toxic. So I guess I can give you some context. Sorry, I'm getting frustrated with Visual Studio Code or VS Code. What I'm trying to build is I'm basically trying to build a little application that helps me generate content for my blog using the great almighty power of large language models. And I'm specifically also using it to learn this new agent framework that Microsoft released 2 weeks ago now. Not this past week, but the week before last. And so this is basically the flow of the application when we get it implemented. And this is obviously kind of one of the supporting frameworks. The code that I'm working on right now is code that fixes a limitation in one of my dependencies. And I can't get my tests to run, which is annoying. Maybe we can get it to work in NeoVim? Cloudy. You should try making games in Roblox Studio. I made a game that has daily 100 players playing and make $2,500 per month. Wow, that is awesome. $2,500 a month? That's fantastic, man. Congratulations. I haven't really gotten into game development myself, personally. It's just never been something that has grabbed my grabbed my attention. But I am glad that you are having a lot of success with it. That's awesome. I mean, $2,500 a month is meaningful money, especially if that's on top of like a job that you're already working, right? I don't like Windows 11. Even if my laptop supported, I still wouldn't use it because it's too bloated. Oh, okay, fair enough. Yeah, no. You should use. This is my. Some people. This is probably going to get annoying because I'm probably going to do this a lot. This is my opinion on the things you should use, and I'm very opinionated about what tools you should use. I'm very, very opinionated on this, and I think everyone should follow my advice, no matter what. That's my opinion. You know, you want to use Linux, use Linux. You want to use Windows, use Windows. You want to use Mac, use Mac. I mean, they all work. There's been successful builders and developers on all the platforms. Um, so you find what connects with you, and you stick with it. And when you want to change, change. Nobody. I mean, obviously if you're at work and your boss says you must use Cursor AI now for all development, well, you're shit out of luck, man. You're gonna have to use Cursor. But on your own free time, for your own machines, for your own projects, you should use the things that bring you joy, not try to force yourself into doing things or working with things that you don't enjoy. Let's see. I spent $300 out of nothing. That's all I had. I spent them to promote the game. It had 1,000+ players, but with updates, it makes money. Also paid for animations. Dude, that's awesome. I've got a friend at work who's he's a developer, so he obviously writes code, for his day job, but in his free time he likes to build games, and he's been working on like a sequel to a game that he built. He uses excuse me. He uses Unity and C Sharp, and they largely publish their games on Steam, which is pretty cool. 64 viewers, yeah. We're having a party here this Saturday morning. Good to have you all here. Hope you guys are doing well. Also, when stream to play games made by us? I haven't. Yeah, I need to sit down and do that. I know I mentioned that on a stream. Like, I think if I do something like that, it will probably be some sort of members only stream that I repurpose into maybe a public video on the channel for non-members. But I need to just kind of create a list of projects or games or things that people have asked me to take a look at, and just start trying to whittle through them. There's just only so many hours in the day, right? Uh, there's like making content, working on my own stuff. Let's see. I think that worked. Let's see. I think it worked. Yeah, this is what I wanted to do. I just wanted to be able to run this one test. Obviously, that's not the best looking display here, but it failed. Okay, so let's try to implement some code that makes this pass. Although I do see a reference to variable. I don't know why this would matter, though. I don't understand why the environment variable key needs to be set for what I'm doing. It shouldn't need to. All right, we are going to. We'll probably hop back and forth here. Ugh. All right, so first things first, what do we need to do? First things first is we should probably make sure well, we need a reference to the path. So we're going to have a string path. Yeah, path. Or no, let's do reference. Reference like this. And I think the first thing we should do is I think we should make sure that the reference is absolute. Yeah? So if so basically if reference actually let's set private const string we'll call this the root character, which in this case will be a hashtag. Oh, it's not a string either, it's a character. It's a char. Be this guy. And then we also want to keep track of the separator, which is going to be a forward slash. And so if the reference does not start with it should basically always start with root character. Let's see, private const, or not, this isn't going to be const. This is going to be a private string. And what do we want to call this? I think we want to call this root path start should always be an interpolated, let's see, interpolated string, root character, and separator character. So if reference doesn't start with a root path start, oh, this needs to be static. Private static root path does not, oh, whoops. Okay, so if it doesn't start with that, that means we have a problem. In which case we should return false. And I think the first thing we're going to do is value equals null. Okay, so if that's true, then we want to be able to find the reference. They need to give us an absolute path. We should probably also say if for reference dot length do I need to check the length? No, I don't need to check the length. I mean, it needs to start with those two characters. If it doesn't start with those two characters, we have an issue, basically. Let's see, made a game in Unity called The Black Rooms One Away. Didn't go as planned, but it's on Google or Chrome if you just search it up. Nice, very cool. You're a machine, man, pumping out the games. HTML and JavaScript for a game, that sounds like fun. I've only built one real game before with code, and that was Snake on the Web. Which was all JavaScript based. Let me see if I can find it. Snake on the Web. Let's see. I know it's on my GitHub. I mean, it's not anything like crazy impressive, but this is the only game I've ever built in code. It was interesting. It was interesting to kind of learn about a game loop and all that stuff. The lag, it's kind of got some lag, but it was fun to make. I know, isn't this exciting? Who wants to watch me code? I'll just play Snake all stream. But yeah, so I would imagine the games you guys are building are way more complicated, but this is all the experience I have with the game development. Most of the development I've done has been more, what do I want to say, more CRUD related, or like building apps that solve very specific problems. Usually problems that I have, sort of like with the application I'm building right now. Oh, that's a good advice. String comparison dot ordinal. Yeah, do that. All right, if it doesn't return that, we don't have what we need. So that's a condition that we know we need to just bail early and return null. And then let's look at some of these others. So I think the next thing we need to do is, what's the next thing we need to do? Start processing the paths, essentially. So we're gonna have to like chop it up into segments, I think. Hey, thanks for the subscription, John. I appreciate you. Okay, so I think what we want to do is, oh yeah, okay, so we want to come down here, and I think what we want to do is we want to say var current, right? So we're assuming that we're resolving whatever path we've been given is a root it's an absolute path or an absolute pointer. That's one assumption. And then the other assumption we're making is that we are going to resolve that path treating the current element, the element this method is being called on, as the root. So we'll say current equals element. So this is the element we're currently working against, and that's our root. That's where we're going to start. And then what we need to do is we need to say for each var segment in what do you want to say, in reference path, something like that. EDL snake. Mine is similar, but I added a twist. Oh, nice, very cool. Yeah, way to go. I think small changes can make all the difference. So for each segment in reference, and actually let's rename this to reference path, or yeah, reference path. That makes more sense, I think. All right, the next thing we need to do is we need to actually start to use this segment to access properties on our element. And so we'll say what do we want to do? We're gonna need to figure out, I guess, var we need to figure out what we're currently on. So we could say if current is let's see, current dot value kind, I think would work. So if it is a value kind object, then we're going to do something. And if it is a current dot value kind is an array, we're going to have to do something different. And then the rest, I think we can all treat pretty similar. The object in the array is really the only one that we need to do something that's unique. Because if we're on an object, then we need to like continue to nest down. If we're on an array, then we're going to need to index. We're going to try to need to index into the array. Let's see, block. He says, I see you use PowerShell when coding. What IDE is that? So this is what I have on my screen right now is Visual Studio. But occasionally, I think what a lot of people sometimes see based on some of the content I share is a lot of times this year I've worked in NeoVim, this is NeoVim running in PowerShell, running in Windows Terminal on Windows 11. So that, I think this is probably the view that you're probably referring to when you say I use PowerShell while I'm coding. It's probably this view here. But I fired up Visual Studio today to give Visual Studio a run. I was going to use Visual Studio's Test Explorer because I kind of like Visual Studio's Test Explorer better than NeoVim, the one I have in NeoVim. But unfortunately, Visual Studio Code's Test Explorer has proven to be kind of a pain this morning. I can't get it to quite work the way I want it to, which is just lovely. Oh, you know what? We should also add a check up here. I know we didn't declare this parameter as nullable, but somebody could still pass it in if they really, really wanted to. So I think we should also add a check here that says string dot is null or empty. That would be a good check, I think, for us. All right, what we need to do now is we need to escape problematic characters. So for escape segment equals segment dot, we actually need to do this a couple times, dot replace, and then we'll also have dot replace. And I was reading the RFC. Let's see. JSON pointer escape. No. JSON pointer. Let's see, / The character separates reference tokens in a JSON pointer. If a literal / needs to be included in a reference token, it must be escaped as approximate 1 or tilde1. This character is used as part of the escape sequence, since if a literal tilde needs to be included in a reference token, it must be escaped as approximate 0. When interpreting a JSON pointer, tilde1 is unescaped to / before okay. To access this value using a JSON pointer, the key needs to be escaped. Well, hold on, this is dumb, right? Because this is going to be each individual. Abdullah, thanks for the subscription, man. I appreciate you. Muaz said hi. Hi, how are you? I'm good, man. How are you? I'm in the middle of trying to implement a way to resolve JSON pointers. So that's going well. What was I gonna say? Well, this is dumb, right? So you can see my mistake here. So this is a dumb loop because what this is actually doing. So if I have a path, that looks like this, right? Hashtag definition / user, right? This loop right now is iterating over each individual character. But what I really want to be doing is I want to be iterating over the individual segments, so everything between the slashes. So what I need to do is I actually need to say var segments equals reference path. Excuse me. And then we can actually just take a substring starting at the second index, because the first two characters should always be these two characters, right? Which basically denotes we're at the root of our element. So we can actually take the substring here. What's this saying? Oh yeah, I can use the range operator. Nice. So we'll have take from the second, and then take from the second index, and then till the end of it. And then we need to say split, and we want to split on the separator character, which is just a /. So now we should have, what does this give us? This should give us an array of segments. So now we should be able to say segments. Nice. Which is good. So going back to this whole idea of escaping, what we basically need to do is we need to replace the problematic characters. And we need to escape this before this. According to Gemini. So let's hope Gemini is advising us right. I'm guessing that Gemini's probably got this from the RFC doc. Yeah, there's the RFC. I'm fine, bro. Thanks. Block, yes. Yeah, so I hope that answered your question about the IDE. I mean, I wouldn't call NeoVim really an IDE. I'd still call NeoVim sort of a text editor. But NeoVim can be extended with a lot of plugins that basically allow you to kind of get it on par with Visual Studio Code in a lot of ways. Granted, it's just different. Like programming with NeoVim, writing code and building things with NeoVim is just a different experience than using your typical, Visual Studio or WebStorm. It's just a different experience. I also think that there's just a different community there. Like, for example, I think a lot of people who use NeoVim as their daily driver for writing code or building applications, they probably also don't use a debugger pretty often. You can hook up a debugger, right? You can definitely configure. I've got debuggers configured for NeoVim, but based on my experience configuring things, configuring debuggers for NeoVim, it's clear that not a lot of people do it. So it's just a different thing. If you're curious though about getting started with NeoVim, I would point you to this course by NeoVim for Noobs by Typecraft. He's a YouTuber, but he has a really good course called NeoVim for Noobs. This is what convinced me to finally give it a try. I'd been watching the Primogen work in NeoVim for like 2 years, and I just never took the plunge. But that course is kind of what put me over the edge. So if you're curious, that would be a good. Evaluation of each reference token begins by decoding any escaped character sequence. This is performed by first transforming any occurrence of the sequence ~1 to a / and then transforming any occurrence of the sequence ~0 to tilde. By performing the substitutions in this order, an implementation avoids the error of turning ~01 into ~1 and then into /, which would be incorrect. Okay, cool. So then let's go back here. So first things first, we go replace ~1 with / and then we replace ~0 with this, which I guess this can be character separator, right? No, separator character, yep. And let's actually give these names too. So we'll say, is that what that character is called, a tilde? Private const character tilde character. I think that's what it's called. Am I wrong? I could be wrong. Tilde character. Yeah, tilde. And then we'll say private const string escaped separator equals a string, which is going to be that, and then private const string escaped tilde equals ~0. I always like doing this because I'm not a big fan of like magic characters or magic strings, so I feel like giving names to those things make your code a little bit easier to understand. So we'll say escaped separator, and then escaped tilde. Why doesn't it like that? Cannot convert from string to char. Oh, does this need to be a string too? To string. That's kind of annoying. That's kind of annoying. I hate the way that looks, but okay, whatever. All right, so then once we have the escape segment, now we can do what we need to do to access, right? Because basically we're just accessing the property at each level. So right here, we're going to get the definitions property of whatever the current element is, and then we'll reassign whatever this resolves to the current element. That's how we'll resolve the path all the way down, and we'll just do that again and again. So if the current element is a object, then what we can do is we can try to get the element. So we can say if the well, actually let's say current dot try get property, and it's important to use Oh, this is actually not the escape segment. This is the unescape segment. So we'll say if so we'll try to get the property of the unescaped segment, and if we do get it, then we will return, or this method will out for us the next element. So if we're able to get that, then we can set current current equals next. No, value, no, right? Yes, current equals next. We'll keep track of the value and the result too. We'll say value, and then we'll say var result equals, and we'll start this to false. Which that way, I think this will make it a little easier if we do it this way. And then down here, we can just say return result, and then we can say value equals current, I think. Just do that. So if we did find it, oh, actually, instead of return, I know that's at the bottom of the screen. Instead of returning, we can say value is not null, right? Value is not null is always true. Remove or refactor the condition to avoid dead code. Is it always not true? I don't think that's true, because value starts as null. Yeah, I don't think that's true. I don't think it's always null, but the compiler is smarter than me. Let's see, value does not equal. Oh, now you're complaining. Now you're complaining. All right, I'm getting distracted. So let's just focus on getting the next. So current equals next. That's fine. And then what? We need to break. No, we don't need to break, right? I think we only need to break if we couldn't find it. Yeah, that's actually returning early probably is better, right? Because if it can't resolve that to something, then we can't proceed. So if we can't get the property, then we should just return false. If we can get the property, then we can say current equals next, like that. And then down here, if the current value kind is an array, then we need to try to get the current index. Or we need to treat the segment as a number, basically. We need to treat the segment as a number. So we need to say if, let's see, if int dot try parse, yeah, unescaped segment. This is a lot. This is this is a little bit of let's see, int try parse is index. And I think if that isn't true, right? So like if the current segment isn't a number but the current element is an array, well, we can't do anything, right? Because like we don't, how do you proceed further down the path if you haven't given me a specific index? So this, in this case, it will be also return false. Now, if we do get an index out here, if we do get an index out and that value is non-zero? No. If the value is not positive, right? So if we say if index is less than 0, we also want to return false. Right? Because like if for whatever reason someone put -1 in the path, well, that's dumb. And we don't like we're not going to be able to do anything about that. If we do have the index, then what we need to make sure is that we don't try to index off the end of the array, right? So again, we're basically checking for conditions where the given path that we've been provided doesn't actually resolve to a real JSON element. So in this case, if index is less than, no, is greater than or equal to, right? Because it's 0, the index is 0 base. So if the index is greater than, which means if I have an array of length, like if there's only one item in the array and you give me 0, then I can access it, which is fine. But if you give me index of 1 or index of 2, right, that would be indexing outside the bounds of the array. So how do we get the current length of the array? We do... Hey, what's up, original concept maker? How are you? What's going on? Well, what's going on right now is we're trying to fix... We're not doing anything related to my app. We're trying to figure out... if we can fix a limitation in one of the libraries that my app is using. That's what we're currently doing. So we want to do my name change. It's the content creator. Oh, somebody asked me about that earlier too. For whatever reason, in OBS, it used to show me your guys' display names. And now in OBS, it shows me your actual usernames. I'm not 100% certain why that is. Go figure. So I'll remember to refer to you as the content creator. What was I saying? Yeah, so if the index is greater than the array.length, we return false. Otherwise, we actually have a way to get the next. So we'll say current is going to equal next, like that. And right now, next var next equals current index like that. Now, if neither of these things are true right here, right? Then we basically know yeah, if neither of those things hit, right? So do I want to return at the bottom of the loop? Yeah, I think what we want to do here is we want to continue. Yeah. We could probably also use a switch statement here, right? But I basically, for each segment, only one of these things can happen. It can be an object or it can be an array. Oh no, I don't think we need to do that. I think we just need to continue to process through the segments. So if we don't exit early, we just need to process through the segments. And current, we'll just keep changing what current's pointing at. But I guess what about when the current element is okay, hold on. Let's use this path as an example, right? So definitions, let's say definitions is an object, right? Or no, let's say we're at the root element. So the current element is an object. So we come down here, we get the definitions. Definitions is a array. Let's say definitions is an array. So then we would need like a path like this, right? Yeah. So let's say definitions in an array. So we come down through here, we're able to get 0. We get the first item. And then the first item in the array, we then get the named property of user. So now current is pointing at user. And so at that point we've run out of segments to traverse. So then we exit the loop. And we make sure that value is equal to whatever the current element we were on is. And then we basically say if value is not null, then we found it. Otherwise, we didn't find it. I think that sounds right. I think that sounds right. Famous last words. I'm sure this is one of those ones where if I had given this to Copilot, it would have been done an hour and a half ago. Okay, so let's try this. So the reason why current is always, I don't know why it thinks that value is always gonna not be null. I think it's because I'm assigning current to value, and current is never, the way current is typed is it's basically saying current is never going to be null. And I don't think current, I think I can actually remove current. No, I can't remove current. I think I just need to type this as potentially null to get rid of that compiler warning. So JSON element. But if I do that, then I have to have all these stupid null checks. And destroy you, right? Nah, you could tell Copilot the opposite, and it would say, "Oh my gosh, you're so right. Would you like me to make you some code in the wrong language that doesn't work?" Related so much with that, if I had used AI, I could have made so much progress by now. Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, I mean, it's definitely valid, but it's kind of fun to challenge your brain to see if you can do this yourself, which is fine. Heard a rumor about you the other day. Heard you scared a couple of pensioners at the park into giving you their ice cream. No, I've never done such a thing. I would never threaten the elders. Basically what I'm thinking about right now is I'm trying to think, is there a good reason I need to keep track of current separately from the value that I'm going to return? And I don't think there is. Yeah, I don't think there is. So I think what we can actually do is we can get rid of current and we can just use our out parameter. And so we'll say, hey, to begin with, this is going to be set to the current element. And then we'll need to then say value. Now this doesn't get rid of the null thing, the null check issue, but I think I can just use, excuse me, also I need more caffeine. I think that's the real problem here. We'll say value. Value is not null. Is not null. Okay. If okay, so I think I'll just add a check here that says if value is null, we need to return. Because we have a problem. JSON element does not contain a definition for value kind and no accepting. What? Why doesn't it have a value kind? These are the same things, right? Element dot value kind, value dot. Is nullability really the issue? So if I change this to non-null, value dot. Oh, that's interesting. I guess I've not worked with JSON element enough as a class to know that. The nullability changes what properties I can access? That's super weird. Okay. Then I'm going to walk all this back. We're going to stick with the current approach then. But instead of assigning so I guess instead of doing that, I guess what I'll do is I'll say I don't know. I think I need more coffee because this is kind of, for whatever reason, this is tripping my brain up this morning. Did the agent you were working on the other day work out the block? That's what we're still working on. That's basically what was happening was I was working on that app for the blog agent app, and in the process of working on that, I found that the underlying library that I was using to talk to Gemini has this limitation that I'm currently writing code to fix. So I'm going to open a PR once I get this fixed up. But that's basically what we're doing right now. Is we've taken a big detour the last two streams to try to make a contribution to this open source project to fix this limitation, so that I can benefit from it in my code. But yes, the agent is going fine. I just haven't been making a lot of progress on it, obviously. He just made the next DeepSeek, then deleted it. Now he's doing No, I did not make the next DeepSeek. You gotta have millions of dollars to build a large language model. If I had millions of dollars, the last thing I would do with it is spend it on making a large language model. Destroy. I comment everything. I usually comment things when I'm writing it, like as I'm thinking through like problems, but I'll usually go through and try, if I can, I'll go through and try to see if I can't write the code or name things in the code in such a way that the comment becomes unnecessary. So I'll usually start with comments, and then at the end when I'm done with my implementation, I'll try to go back through and see if there's a way I can write the code or name things in the code where comments are no longer necessary. But sometimes you do need to comment because stuff is just complicated. Free Blackwell GPU download, 100% no scam. What are we talking about? Shudo, does it treat one as a reference and the other as a pointer? I think I think it's more of, you're probably right, actually. The nullability, yeah, you're probably right. Because I think JSON element is a struct, yeah. So yeah, you're probably right that's why the nullability impacts what properties are available, if I had to guess. But I don't know. I'd have to ask Gemini to explain that one to me. I've never seen that before. Okay, I'm gonna roll an ad and go get some coffee, and then be back in like 5-ish minutes or so. I think we're close. I mean, if I can just figure out the best way to handle the assignment of the result, and returning a Boolean, I think will be good. I think. I mean, I basically just need to make sure that I've taken care of all the possible. Because what I'm thinking is, I know I said I'm going to get coffee and then I'm not getting coffee. But what I'm thinking is that if I set the result to true, right? So I start with the assumption that I have an element. Then say set this to false. And then we'll pull this down here and we'll say var result and value. I mean, value's gonna be null to start with, so I don't really need to do that assignment there. So if I start with result true, and then here, if I say, okay, result now equals false. This is the one thing I don't. So I love the signature of try methods. I don't like implementing. Okay, that's fine. That's why I need to assign it up here. Value equals null. So value starts as null. Okay, so then result equals false. Result equals false. Results equals false. But then here I need to actually break. Basically, anytime I get to a point where a result is false, I need to break. Need to stop looping. And then we can return the result. I think this works. Oh. Tilde character. Cannot convert from string to oh. Oh, also, I guess I could derive this, couldn't I? Guess who's back? Hey, Stefan, how are you, man? Stefan, one of our illustrious YouTube members. Line 15 and 16. Saw something. Could be an out param. Fahad? Fahad? Steven? Nice, another Steven. Thanks for the subscription, guys. I appreciate that. Always happy to see another Steven out there in the world. No, I think this is fine. I think this is close to what I need. I wish I could just come over here and run my test, but VS Code is not cooperating, so let's see if we can run it with... This is going to be difficult to debug in NeoVim. Oh, I'm an idiot. I need to actually use the method. I'm not actually calling this method. Okay, so what we need to do is we need to then say, let's see, our test case has a few different things. It has test case name, which is fine. JSON element, this is the element we're calling it on. We have the reference path, the expected value. Okay. So what we need to do is we need to say var result equals test case dot JSON element dot try get from reference, like that. And then we need test case dot reference path out var element, like that. I think is what. And then we need to say, how about we just say result element. And then what we're going to say is we're going to say assert dot assert dot equal that test case dot expected result is the result, and then assert dot, I think, equivalent, and we want test case dot expected value is the result element. Result value, like that. And then we should be able to run our test. Now, the problem here is that, again, for whatever reason, NeoVim's being a real jerk. I mean, not NeoVim. VS Code's being a real jerk about showing me my tests as individual tests that I can run. Like I should, if VS Code was working properly, I should just have a green icon right here that I can click and it will just run this one test. Also, I realized I did say that I was going to get coffee and then I never went and got it. The Steven namespace is getting out of hand? Yeah. Let's see, error, test failed. This tiny little window. Test case, valid reference to array item. Expected true, but actual is false. Expected value is 404. But we are getting... I have no idea how to say your username, but thank you for the subscription, man. I appreciate it. Ebenezer? I haven't seen that name in a long time. Thanks for subscribing, man. It's very kind of you. I've tried reloading my window, man. I've tried everything on this to get it to pick up my two new tests. I wonder if I need to add like a... See, it's missing, the Test Explorer is missing, see, it's only picking up 2 projects. It's not picking up the Gemini.net.test project. And I wonder why that is. Okay, let me... What do I want to do here? I think what I want to do is I want to take a break and I want to get coffee. And then I also want to figure out how the hell I run these how the hell I run individual tests in Visual Studio or Visual Studio Code. And if I can't figure out Visual Studio Code, then I might just switch over to Visual Studio or Writer or something. Get status. Git add. Git commit. Feature. Initial implementation of getting element based on reference path. Now, let me try something really quick. I'm just gonna I'm gonna check out his main branch. Git check out main. And then I'm gonna reload this window. I'm gonna see if the tests show up when I'm on the main branch, because maybe it's something I've done in my branch that has caused this not to work. Also, I'm really sick of these Java pop-up thing. Was it Java? Let's uninstall this, man. Uninstall. Jess brains? Yeah. How come you're using Visual Studio? I'm using Visual Studio Code, and I just decided to use it because I wanted to. Normally, I've been working on this project in NeoVim, but I kind of like the Test Explorer in Visual Studio a little better. And I will agree, Writers is pretty nice IDE as well. Every time, does anyone see this? Why is the Java extension giving me a warning when I try to refresh my tests? Let's see, Gradle. I don't even know why I have Java. Uninstall. Uninstall. And it, for whatever reason, it is not picking up those tests. I've never had this issue before with Visual Studio, or Visual Studio Code, VS Code. I guess VS Code's a better way to say it because Visual Studio Code confuses people. VS Code, Test Explorer, not showing tests. Reload the window. I've already tried that. Reinstall extensions. Run it from the command line. Yeah, I could try that. It's got a reference to all the right. Let's see. Let's try new folder .vs code, and then let's try settings.json. Let's do .net default solution equals Gemini. .net.sln. Let's reload the window. I don't know if this will make a difference, but I'm hoping it does. Makes no difference. All right, I think it's time to go get another shot of espresso and say good morning to my family, and I'll be right back. Are you sure you want to use Java? I do not want to use Java. Well, that comes across like I'm knocking Java. I'm not trying to knock Java. I just don't want to deal with it. I don't want that extension bothering me every time I try to build my solution. You must remove Roblox hacks that are causing these issues. I do not have any Roblox hacks, nor do I've never played Roblox actually. Well, I take that back. I tried to play it once when I was trying to figure out what the heck it was, so that because my kids were asking to play it, and I still don't quite understand Roblox. Sharon, what are you building? So we're trying. Well, what we're doing right now is we're trying to fix a bug or add a feature to a particular library that we're using in an application that I'm building. But the application that I'm trying to build is this guy. So basically we're trying to build like a LLM powered ghostwriter that I can use for myself to help me generate content for my blog. It's not an AI slop generator, so that's not what I'm not trying to generate slop, but I'm just trying to create like my own form of a ghostwriter that can help me iterate on content faster than what I currently do. The Oracle guys officially had That's a nice way to say you don't like someone / something. Well, you know, in this day and age, you kind of have to, you got to make sure you're politically correct. You know, you can get canceled for these things. All right, I am gonna roll an ad here while I go get coffee, and then I will be like right back in probably, I don't know, 5-ish minutes, maybe less. Alright, I'll turn the music up, so watch your ears. Okay, ads rolling in 3, 2, 1, and then I'll be right back. See you guys in a minute. Oh. Someone said, "Oh boy, ads. This is my favorite part." Uh, what can I say? You know, it's the capitalist in me. I did my sons are both awake, so I probably am gonna try to see if I can't figure out this whole test thing without getting too frustrated, and then I'll probably wrap it up for the day at least. I actually might stream later today because I want to. I mentioned at the beginning of the stream I bought a NAS recently, um, but I haven't set it up yet. I actually hadn't set it up because I hadn't had gotten the hard drives yet, and I got the hard drives yesterday. So I think I actually might do that later this afternoon or this evening, and I'll probably go live while I'm doing that. But at least for this problem that we're struggling through, I'm gonna see if I can't figure it out, and then I'll probably wrap it up for the morning. Okay, so this did not help anything, so let me delete that. And let's try to open this in Visual Studio and see if that's any better. I know, Visual Studio. Don't get me started. Steven figured this shit out better than I ever realized. His content is him writing an automated AI manager for his content. Yeah, it's very circular, isn't it? Let's see. This is giving me a warning about this Visual Studio needing to be updated, but I don't want to do that right now, so we're gonna ignore it. All right, let's open a solution. And again, the problem here is I basically just want to I just want to run one individual test, and I want to be able to set breakpoints and debug into that test without necessarily having to use the CLI. And for whatever reason, things are not showing up. I know this is very little, so please be patient with me. View Test Explorer. Okay, see, Visual Studio picked it up. God, that's so annoying. Why can't although I don't see my tests. I see the schema, but I don't see the test that I wrote. Does that mean there's something wrong with the test I wrote? That's kind of what it's kind of what it's leading me to believe, maybe. Could you imagine? I mean, in the future, there probably will be like, there probably will be people. I mean, it's kind of like, have you guys ever watched Lo-Fi Girl on YouTube, right? Lo-Fi Girl, the YouTube channel. It's kind of like that, but imagine like a lo-fi channel where it's interactive. Yeah? Yeah, Sora, like like a Sora stream. Like that would be yeah, like this channel, but imagine like Lo-Fi Girl now like talks like a regular streamer. Could be a VS Code bug. It could be. I honestly think it's a me thing. I think something about the way I wrote my test is problematic. And I don't know what it is, but I guess we're just gonna have to basically I think we're just gonna have to go through like kind of process of elimination to figure out what the hell I did wrong. Because obviously I've done something wrong. Let's see. Code dot. I know this is not enjoyable content at all, but it kind of is what it is. Delete you. Yes, I'm sure. Oh, it's because I have it open. All right. Let's just rip my test file out of here and see what happens. Oh. I'm an idiot. Remember when I switched over to the main branch? um, I'm an idiot. Why did I forgot my test wasn't showing up in Visual Studio because I switched over to the main branch. My test isn't on the main branch. My test is on the other branch. Daber, thanks for the subscription. Melty, thanks for subscribing. I appreciate you. I probably need to turn. Oh no, I remember to turn the music down. I put your test in a different file as a prank knife. Okay, it still doesn't show up here. Okay, so then let's switch over to git checkout my branch. And now let's do the thing. Let's reopen Visual Studio again and see if it. I mean, you're right. It could be a Visual Studio bug. Someone said that it could be a Visual Studio bug, or a Visual Studio Code bug, a VS Code bug. I hate the way I'm referring to those things because people are already in the C# world. People are already super confused about like VS Code versus Visual Studio, and the way I'm referring to them is just adding to that confusion. Okay, view, test explorer. Yeah, I still don't see my. I still do not see my test. Maybe we clean the solution, see if that does anything. I mean, I can see the test file, right? So if I go to Solution Explorer, if I go into Test, if I go into hold on. I don't see my test file. Uh-oh. What? What have I done? Let's see, JSON, element. I don't see my test file. I'm on the right branch, aren't I? What the heck is happening right now? What is even reality? Steve boy, I'm new to programming. Well, that's awesome. Well, we're glad to have another Steve here. So, awesome to have you. And what do I want to say to you? I guess I'll say I hope that your programming journey is starting off on a good foot. I hope you're enjoying yourself, and I hope you're having fun. What did I do? Did I blow away my... Git branch. Oh, I checked out the wrong branch. Gosh dang it. Git checkout. I gotta lock in, man. I gotta lock. I gotta lock in here. Steven, there's another Steve again. Surely this is an alt account of yours. No, all these Stevens are not alt account. These are real. These are just real other real Stevens. Destroy said time to control Z. Control Z your way to glory. I've always thought it would be fun to have a t-shirt that said something like Control Z to glory or Control Tab to glory or something like that. I'm facing a problem where I can't push my code to GitHub. It's saying access denied to my Git repo. Are your credentials properly set for Git? That's probably the first thing I would check. Because when you do initially set up Git, you have to authenticate, or at least when you set up your remote a remote destination of GitHub, you have to choose if you want to authenticate with HTTP, over HTTPS or over SSH. So you might check maybe something happened to your Git credentials that you set up. That would be the first thing I would check. So I guess it's not really your Git credentials, it's your GitHub credentials. Yeah, I would if I had to guess, it's something with your authentication, with something with how you're set up locally to authenticate against GitHub. That's got you hung up. I wish I had more pointed advice like open this file in this but I don't. I just know when you're first setting up the ability to push to GitHub as a remote, I'm pretty sure either Git or GitHub prompts you. Like, do you want to authenticate against? Do you want to use SSH with a key, or do you want to use your? You want to log in, right? Do you want to use your GitHub login? Or I think somebody else mentioned it here. You can also use a PAT if you'd like to. All right. What was I doing? Oh yeah, I was trying to get these tests to work. So let's open Visual Studio, because Visual Studio seems to be the only place where it's picking up the all of the tests. So let's see if it picks up my test file now. Okay, so there's my tests. Now we'll see if it picks up that there's a test there. I will say, Steve, it is very frustrating when stuff like that happens. You're trying to get some actual work done, and then something with your tooling begins giving you difficulties. It is very, very frustrating. So there we go. So, I mean, there is a test there, so I don't know why Visual Studio is not picking it up. I don't know what I've done. So I'm going to undock the Solution Explorer. I'm just going to put this over here on the side. And then we can close that. However, why isn't it giving me the ability, let's see, run. Okay, okay, get this. So 5 of my tests passed, which is wonderful. So you can see 5 of my tests passed, and 4 failed. So now we just need to go through and see why some failed and why some succeeded. I kind of wonder if it has something to do with the fact that I'm using this theory data. Because I should be able to run the tests individually. Let's see. How do we do that? XUnit theory data individual tests. Okay, here we go. Why do some theories get expanded into individual test cases and others not? Let's see. I think Brad might be the creator of XUnit. Oh no, he's the maintainer. XUnit's caretaker. Okay. The short answer: in some of your theory data can't be serialized by XUnit.net, then it can't be encapsulated into the serialization of a test case, which we're required to do for the Visual Studio Test Runner. In Visual Studio Test Runner, test cases are discovered in one process and executed in another. We can only serialize at the test method level because that just involves knowing the type and method name. I've used serialize with air quotes because while what we're doing is serialization, it isn't the serialization built into .NET. We can't use that because it's not available. We've also added our own interface for allowing users to customize serialization. So how do I fix this? See, my serializable. So I thought I did implement serialization in my... At least I thought I did. Maybe I didn't understand. Steven, I need help. What's up, Stefan? What do you need help with? You know any tool which I can use to easily design simple UI? Well, I think most people these days use Figma, but Figma seems a little, that doesn't seem like a simple tool. Well, actually, I guess what you're asking is simple UI. I think Figma would be a good tool. It's not a simple tool, um, but I think you could use Figma to design simple UIs. You could also use it to design very complex things. Oh, did I just delete? Let's see. I don't know. XUnit theory data serializable example. XUnit serializable example. Okay, so can I get it to work by changing the way I'm doing this? So if I say member data, this is complaining because it cannot. That's a hilarious gift. Let's see, where am I? Member type, here we go. Supported intrinsics. Member type equals, okay, so let's see if that works. Name of reference test cases. And then member type equals. That doesn't seem to work. Oh my gosh, I feel like I'm just like all over the place right now. Oh, I see. Okay. Okay, so what happens if I remove this guy? This starts to complain. Provides a data source for a data theory with data coming from a class with much implement IEnumeral. The type argument reference test case is not serializable, which will cause Text Explorer to not enumerate individual data rows. Consider using a type that is known to be serializable. Okay, well, I implemented that, which is great, but you're still not showing me the individual tests. Isabella, thanks for subscribing. I appreciate you. It's very kind. Let's see. I downloaded. Sorry guys. I'm haven't paying attention to chat. I don't know. Hello, I don't know. I downloaded Python, but when I give it a command to print something, it doesn't give an output. Instead, it switches to terminal. Show the file location in my device. So that's probably because I don't know. You can't. So Python is an interpreted language, right? So that means Python the code itself can't be run. Your Python file can't be run like a executable. It hasn't been compiled to like machine native code, right? So you can't just run it. For example, let's say I switch into my desktop real quick just to kind of illustrate the thing you're struggling with. So if we do new item main.py like this, and then let's say we open that up in NeoVim, and we say print, just say print hello world like that, and we'll write that out. Why is that complaining? I don't care about that. So if I try to call main.py like this, right, it's just going to try to open the file is what it's going to do. You can't see it, but it's asking me what application I want to open this file in. That's not going to work. If you actually want to execute the code in the file, that's where you have to pass the file as an argument to the Python interpreter, right? So Python is two things, really. It's the language, but it's also an interpreter. So Python, the interpreter, is what can understand your Python code and actually translate it into the commands that actually need to be run on the machine. So in this case, what I'd say is I'd say python.main.py, and then your code gets executed, which is a very common thing early on when you're learning JavaScript or Python or any of these interpreted languages. Node is exactly the same way, right? If you do something like echo console.log hello, and then let's put that into index.js like that, and we'll just make sure our thing got in there. So I can't say index.js, right? That's not going to work. I had to say node index.js. So it's the same thing. It's just the difference between code that's been compiled to actually run directly on the machine versus code that is interpreted to run on the machine, so that you need some other program to interpret that code. But yeah, that can be very confusing when you get started. Transforming a C. Oh, we talked about that, Stefan, right? About making your website be able to be served over, or basically being able to curl your website and have it display pretty in the terminal. Yeah, that sounds like a fun project. Ever play around with the REPL? I have, yeah. So yeah, you can also, I guess that's another thing to point out for I don't know, is like both Node and Python come with kind of playground environments that you can use in the terminal. So if you just type Node and don't pass it a file, it'll actually create a REPL environment where you can then just arbitrarily write and execute code. It's not the most it's not the most pleasing experience, especially if you're doing like more complicated multi-line programs. Doing them in the REPL isn't a great experience, but you can use it that way. Python has the same thing, right? So you can say print hello like that. No, this is for my nutrition app. Oh, okay. Well, very cool. A nutrition app that works in the CLI? I like it. That's not typically where I would think people would track their nutrition from, but hey, programmers. maybe that's the audience you're trying to hit, is programmers. All right. So the reason why okay, so I should just explain the reason why I'm so hung up on this is, you see how this test case gets broken down into the individual test cases. That's what I want for my tests. So that way I don't have to run every single example. I just want to run the one example that's causing an issue so that I can debug and step through it. And the problem is somehow I have to implement something in a particular way so that XUnit can figure out what the names should be. So I need to do some Googling. So let's see, class data, XUnit, individual test cases. I like this guy's blog. I always find myself on this guy's blog a lot when I'm searching C# related things. Okay, he didn't talk about it at all. KKK. We have theory data, which is great. Using class data and IEnumerable. None of these guys are using iSerializable. Okay, I guess I'm gonna ask Gemini because none of those results seem like they're very helpful. Let's see, I'm using XUnit to write data-driven tests for my C# project. I have a class that provides, I have a class that inherits from theory data, and the type parameter implements iXUnit serializable. However, in my test explorer, these are not showing up as individual tests. Why not? See if the almighty AI can help me. Nope, I have the public, I have that. Okay, I'm pretty sure I've done all that. Yeah, I've done all that. So, maybe I should just try cleaning up my class and see if something changes. So, God, I've got way too many windows open. Let's see. Maybe I just try doing this. Let's go over here. I think this is fine, but let's just not add any data. Like this. Or actually, hold on. Let's leave those. And let's override public. Yeah, let's do that. Let's see if that changes anything. View. I don't use Visual Studio that much, so I don't really have a great build. I don't really have a great Visual Studio setup or layout or anything quite yet. Okay, I don't think that made any difference. Yeah, it's still showing up as one thing. So let's try then to just, once again, remove that, remove that. We'll run these one more time. Clear test results, run again. Yeah, it's still not showing up as individual test cases, but I've done everything it says I need to do, so I don't understand. Maybe it's the type. I was using a record, maybe it doesn't like that. Nope, that's not it. Well, I guess my my last resort is to basically refactor these into individual tests, which is kind of a pain in the ass, but I don't know what else to do, and I'd really like these tests to show up, and I'd like to be able to work with them in a very specific way. Oh, goodness gracious. Okay, well, that's what we're gonna do then, because I'm sick of I'm sick of not doing anything. No, I don't want to update Visual Studio right now. Let's see. What I want to do is I want to actually make some progress. That's what I actually want to do. So we're gonna come back here and we're gonna do a little bit of refactoring, and I don't think I'm gonna excuse me, I don't think I'm gonna get rid of this code. I think I'm just going to comment it out, and then I'll try to figure out how to fix it later. Okay, so we have public void. Let's see if actually Copilot might be able to help me with this, huh? I'm actually going to open a second window here. It makes it a little easier for me to reference. Excuse me. Also, I'll probably go for another 10-ish minutes, and then I think I'm going to call it for this morning, because my kids are already up, and I should go hang out with them. I apologize that my stream today has been a little chaotic. File, open recent. I want to open this file twice. Can I do that? I think so, right? Control B. There we go. Because I want to edit it, but I also want, let's see, open in separate window. Move to new window. There we go. All right, so the first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna take all of this schema and we're gonna move it up here. This is the kind of stuff about like programming and coding that's really frustrating, is oftentimes it feels like when you try to do things in a very elegant way, it ends up taking you longer than if you had just done it in a simple way. You know? Or you try to do things in a simple way and you run into things that you stub your toe on that you wouldn't have if you had gone the simpler way. And even though the more elegant way looks better, the simpler way would have still accomplished the same thing and gotten you there with less heartache. And I continue to learn that lesson again and again, and again, and again. Okay, so we are gonna say, so that's our test schema, and then we are gonna have a private read-only JSON element, which is going to be our test schema. And then in our constructor, public JSON element extension test, that's our public constructor. What we'll do here is we are going to say test schema equals JSON document dot parse, and we will parse our test schema JSON, and then we'll get the root element of that. This way we can just reuse the test schema across multiple test methods. And then here we'll say public void try get reference when called with valid object definition. It should return expected results. I know, very descriptive name there. And then here we will say, let's see, var result is going to equal underscore test schema dot try get from reference. So that's the method under test. And then we'll give it our path. So in this case, we'll say var reference equals hashtag pound sign, hashtag, I don't know, what do you guys call it? Hashtag. And then we'll say reference like this, and we'll say out var result value. And then here is where we're going to assert. So we'll say assert dot true. And then we'll also say assert dot equivalent, which will be the expected, which we don't have yet, result value. So this is what we got, and then we need the expected value. So we'll say var expected value. And this, how we'll get the expected value is we'll basically just say test schema get property definitions, and then get property user, like that, because that's what we expect it to resolve to anyways, right? Our code is basically going to call that exact same thing under the hood, and this will be results or expected value, like that. So we're basically what we're doing here is we're basically just taking all of these test cases that we declared down here, and we're basically splitting them into individual test methods, so that it should be a little bit easier to debug which tests are currently problematic. So then what we can do is we can just, and this is the whole reason why you use data-driven tests to begin with, right? Is that you don't have to have 9 methods on your test class that all basically call the same code but just change different parameters. That's why you would use this to begin with, and do this. But for whatever reason, I'm having trouble making that work the way I want it to. So I'm just going to go back to the to the simple way, and I'm just going to have separate methods. So again, we'll have try. Actually, let's just copy. We'll save ourselves some typing. We'll just copy this, and paste it here. And now we're going to test when called with valid when called with valid reference to property of object definition. So this would be like getting the name. So instead of just stopping at user, we want to actually drill into user and we want to get the name. So we'll come down here and we'll say, this is going to be user, properties, name. In which case, now the expected element will just be several more get property calls. Which now that I'm writing this one, I don't think the code I implemented handles this. So we'll say, or maybe it does. Get user properties dot get property name. That. Okay. And then we'll copy this again. Murat, thanks for subscribing, man. I appreciate you. I know this is the most thrilling stream that's ever been, but I appreciate you subscribing. We'll say valid reference to array item. In which case now we're going to do definitions, error codes, and this will be 1. And then the expected is going to be definitions, and then we're going to say get the error codes. And instead of more get property calls, we will just index that. Perfect. I think I have 9 test cases, so we have to do this quite a few more times. When called with valid reference with escaped / and our path now is going to be definitions a tilde. Where's my tilde? Tilde 1b. What a weird way to represent. So this will be a / b. Hey Butterscotch, how are you? Good to see you. That's a long function name. Yeah, it's a long function name because when you're using, so I know Butterscotch, you don't write a whole lot of C#, but the method name on your test classes is basically what they use for your test names when you're writing tests in C# in most of the test frameworks. So typically whatever you want your test name to show up is what you need to write your method name to be. So while this is a long method name, really what I'm doing is I'm trying to write it just, if you're looking at a CLI, if you're looking at your test running in the CLI, you can clearly see like which test it is and what is being tested. So I always use the, instead of just doing like public void test1, which doesn't tell you what the hell's happening with that test, I always do the method under test, the name of the method under test, the conditions under which the method is being tested, and then the expected result. That's how I name everything. But you're not the first person to comment on that. It's funny, I've posted some shorts before where I had test code on the screen like that, and that was the #1 comment was, what is that method name? Which I mean, I don't hold it against him. It does look funny. Okay, so now we need let's see, C0D, like that, which should resolve to C approximate or tilde D, like that. We just got a few more here. Hang with me. I don't know. Saw your message. Your device needs an exorcism if printing is causing File Explorer to open. Well, no, I think what his problem was. I think what his problem was is that he was trying to do this, right? So say he's on the command line, and let's say I have a file here called main.py, right? So whenever I call main.py, his machine is just trying to open the file, right? Or show where the file's located. So it's probably using whatever is set as like the default app for that extension type. So maybe it's trying to open it in a file explorer because that's what's set. In this case, I actually get prompted like to pick what app I want to use to open the file. And what he's expecting is to actually run the file. Well, you can't actually run a Python file. It's not an executable. It's not like a compiled exe, or it's not compiled to a binary that your machine can just run. So you actually have to pass it as an argument to Python, right? Python, not Python the language, Python the interpreter. So I think that's what his issue was. Same thing with like index.js, right? You can't just say like my shell, my machine right now is like, I don't know what to do with index.js. It's like, are you talking about a file? Are you talking about a command on the terminal? I don't, you know what I mean? Like that one just opens the notepad. But what you really want to do is you want to run it, but you have to pass it to whatever's supposed to interpret the code in it. Got to stick with .NET. Yeah, well, .NET can do the same thing now, so you can actually do. Do I have this on cat index.cs? Yeah, so .NET can do a similar thing now. Although you have to have the you have to be using, in order for it to work, you have to use the you have to use .NET 10 for it to work. But you can actually, if you have your SDK pointed at .NET 10, you can actually do .NET index.cs, and it'll work now. That's a new feature that they're bringing in .NET 10. Okay, try get reference. When called with invalid non-existent definition, which would be something like this, non-existent, then the expected value is null. If we call this with a index that's outside the bounds of the array, when called with invalid index, it should return expected result. So let's say I do something like this, where I go into an array and I do 5. That's non-existent. when called with root element, it should return expected result. So if I call it with just this, oh, I don't think I handled this case actually. Yeah, I don't think that case I've handled yet with my code either. But what we would expect is if you pass in just that, which I don't know why you would. I don't know why we would even need to support that case. So let's ignore that. Let's ignore that case. Let's say with invalid, with non-absolute path, meaning it's not an absolute path is what I mean by that. So like if you did something like this, definition/user, this should return null as well. So this should be var expected value equals null, and then we need to explicitly type this. Okay, and then, so those are all the cases we want to test against. So let's comment this out real quick. So we can say GC. Now, I still don't think this is going to get picked up by my test explorer in Visual Studio. If I had to guess. Which is annoying. Yeah, Visual Studio still doesn't pick it up, so we'll have to open. I'm having to work across like 3 different editors, and it's really, really dumb. It's really, really dumb that I'm having to do this. God, I'm hungry. Okay. However, now in Visual Studio, postpone, I would expect now if I go to my test explorer, where are we? Test explorer. There we go. Let's see, we've got 8. There we go. Yep. So now we can actually test these all individually. This is where I've been trying to get to all fucking morning, and I don't know why. It was such a pain in the ass. So let's go ahead and run these. Sharon, how do you code in PowerShell? So some pass and some fail. So I've got 5 that fail. So expected true but return false, so this says when called with invalid index. No, okay. This is where copying and pasting gets you into trouble because actually I expect it to be false. So we need to rework these. Going back to the question about PowerShell, Sharon, I use an editor called NeoVim. And NeoVim is a terminal-based editor, and so I just set up NeoVim on my Windows machine, and my shell of choice is PowerShell. So I develop on a Windows machine. I use Windows Terminal as my terminal emulator, and then I use PowerShell as my shell of choice. And then because obviously NeoVim is a terminal or shell-based editor, when I actually want to edit the code, I can type neovim or nvim as the command, and that will open neovim within PowerShell. So that's basically how I do it. If you're interested in like learning more about neovim, there's a really great course by a guy named Typecraft. If you go to YouTube and you type in neovim for noobs, He's got a really great video that kind of walks through getting you set up with a kind of basic configuration, and then you can obviously take it from there and get it customized and configured to your exact specific language and preferences and all that good stuff. And if you're interested in my configurations, I can link you to those. So my configurations for it are here. These are my NeoVim configs. I don't know if that link is super clickable or not, but basically if you just go to my GitHub, if you go to github.stephenfreeborn.com and then just search for nvim config, you'll find the right repo. All right, so my problem here is that in the cases where I expect it to fail, I'm asserting true. So let's see, this one should work. That works, that works, that should work, that should work, that should work. So this one actually should be, result here should actually be false. This one should be false as well. Also, I'll just point out that if this was actually my library, I would be using something like fluent assertions or awesome assertions. But since this isn't my library, I'm just trying to stick to what the original author has been developing with. Okay, let's rerun these and see if we get different results. So we'll run. Okay, now we got 3 that are failing. So when called with invalid index, it should, okay, so we got failure. So expected is null, which is wonderful. Or no, sorry, expected is null. Actual is we are returning some error codes. So what's happening is, inside our code, if we go to our definition here, basically, we need to make sure that if we do reach false, anytime we reach false, we need to null out the current, because we're using current down here. So if we do hit false, we're going to break. We also need to set current to null, basically. Oh no, or we could set value to null. Well, no, we can't do that because so I think what we actually need to do is we need to say result. If result is true, then we set to current. And if result is not true, then we set to null. I know, that's super ugly. That's super, super ugly. Now let's rerun this test and see if it passes. Yeah, okay, so that passes. Let's rerun this one. That one passes. Okay, that one's still failing. So why is this failing? When called with valid reference to array item, it should return expected result. So I expected it to return true, but it's actually returning false. Okay, let's take a look at the code here. See, it's so much easier to figure out what's going wrong when you have tests that test very specific cases, and then you have an editor or an IDE that supports the ability to run each test individually. And then not only that, but if you need to, then you have the ability to debug each individual test. It's so much easier to quickly iterate and figure out where your expectations differ from reality, and then start to inspect the logic of your code of why that is the case. This is such a, I know it took me literally an hour and a half to get to this point, but it's so much more efficient to work like this. And if I could just figure out how the hell to get class data to play nicely with individual test cases, we could have avoided all this. But I'll figure this out before I open a PR, because this is far more elegant than having individual cases. Okay, what are we looking at? We're looking at when called with valid reference to array item. That's the test we're looking at. When called with valid reference to array item. This one. All right, so we should go to the definitions, then we should go to error codes, and then we should get the first item. So looking at our implementation, if try parse out var index, I guess we'll see where it's. Oh, I need to do this in Visual Studio. So I guess what we'll see is if we set a breakpoint on, let's set a breakpoint here. And then let's debug this guy. I'm so cramped for space on this little vertical window. Okay, let's see. So are we hitting this? How do I step over? Where am I debug? Oh, okay. So I actually need to look at the next thing. Huh. Because it's trying to parse the error codes. Error codes is an array, but I'm trying to parse that actual value to a number, which it's not. It's the next segment that's a number. Okay, so we'll just let this run we'll just stop debugging now. Well, that's fairly straightforward. That's just a dumb mistake on my part. Again, there's somebody out there that's like, if you'd just given this to Gemini, you would already be done. Sharon. So I have recently started as a backend developer in .NET C#. This is the first job. So my question is, how do I excel like you? What courses do you recommend? What's a roadmap? Well, I don't know if I'm excelling, but I do try my best. As far as getting better as a .NET or C# developer, a lot of my C# and .NET development knowledge comes from a lot of YouTube content, honestly. So if I could point you in some good directions, I would highly make sure you're subscribed to Nick Chopsis. He has tons of great free content on his YouTube channel. This guy right here, he's got wonderful content. There's also a guy named Tim Corey that has a lot of great content. I think he even has some free courses on his YouTube channel. So those would be good free resources, I feel like, for the .NET, the C# space. If you're interested in spending some money, like you're willing to actually spend some cash, you might take a look at DOM Train. So DOM Train is actually Nick's, that YouTuber that I just pointed out. This is actually his company, and they have a lot of great courses here. They can be a little expensive. I don't know kind of what your financial situation's like or how much money you have to put towards this kind of stuff. But, for example, here's a really great one if you wanted to learn XUnit, testing with XUnit. It'll take you from starter, beginner to advanced. There's tons of topics here that you can dive into. Any of them I think would be just fine. I mean, I haven't bought all of them, but I trust the quality of these guys. Um, the platform that I currently use for continuing education is called Pluralsight. So I don't know if you've ever heard of Pluralsight, but Pluralsight's a really great platform. But it's not really C# or .NET specific. Really, it's kind of all kinds of tech skills. But the one thing that Pluralsight does have is it does have a lot of C# content, and there's basically for every major design pattern, there is a corresponding Pluralsight course, right? So for learning how to use the decorator pattern or the strategy pattern or any of those kind of object-oriented or design patterns that help you kind of hold to solid principles, there's a course on Pluralsight. So those would be resources that I've personally used and I found very helpful. So maybe those would be good places for you to start. I know paid resources are always a little bit difficult, always a little bit more of an obstacle or hurdle for people than like free courses. So if you just want to get away with free content, I would follow Tim Corey, I'd follow Nick Chopsis, I'd watch all their content, stay up to date with it all. And then maybe if you have a little bit of extra cash, pick up a course every now and then. But good to have you here, man. And I wish you all the best with your C# journey, .NET journey. I know a lot of people kind of shit on it because it's not the hot new thing, you know. But I think .NET, I think C# has a really bright future. There's a bunch of really smart people working on it to try to make it more appealing to the modern developer, which I think is awesome. Okay, so basically, what do I need to do here? I almost need to not do a for each loop, right? Because basically at this point, what I want to do is I want to move the iterator forward. Sharon, how's the job market right now for .NET? I think it's okay. I think .NET has always been one of those languages or one of those ecosystems that tends to be more enterprisey, right? So usually it's being used by larger companies. There's not a ton of startups using it. I mean, I'm sure there are some. Your job prospects are probably something that's larger, more established. But I think the job market for any language or any technology is good enough to get a job. I will say it might take you more effort, it might take you longer, but if you really want to be a C# developer, you really want to work in .NET, I'm sure there's a place out there for you. Yeah, so yeah. Now I'm thinking about this and I'm thinking, okay, in order to make this work, right? Great, I have an array. What if I put the array check above the property check? Would that? Oh, you know what? I think if I just do this, I can fix this, right? Because I think what's happening here is actually is that what's happening? Yeah, so the first time we pass through this, we're an object. Okay? Then hold on, go back to my test here. Okay, so the first time we pass through, we're an object. So we get the definitions property, which is fine. The next time we come through, we're still an object. I need to look at the schema. Where's our test schema? What's over here? Okay, so we come through. We are an object, so we get the definitions. Now we come through, and the current segment is we're on error codes, and the current value is definitions. So, and I think this will. I apologize. OBS seems to be connecting and reconnecting. I don't know if that's affecting you all, but it keeps alerting me to that fact. Thanks for your insight, man. Of course, yeah. It's nice to meet somebody who's also a C# person and likes to write C# and work in .NET. There's not a ton of us on YouTube, so we kind of have to stick together. There we go. Okay, so now I think everything's passing now. Woo! Everything's passing. Wonderful. I don't. This is kind of some ugly code that I've written here, but that's almost sort of the nature of the beast whenever you're doing this try get reference. Okay, so what was all this in service of, right? So now going back to what this was all in service of. This was all in service of making sure that whenever this code generates a schema from a JSON schema, that it gets translated properly. So if we go back to the original test that was failing, which is here in MEI. So if we go back here and we run this, yeah, right here. So this is the test that's failing. And this is failing because, let's debug this, This is failing. Cannot serialize a value type of content. Oh, well, that's problematic. I'll have to fix that at some point. Step over. How do I just continue? Why can't? There we go. There we go. So this is happening because how do I pin this? Make this bigger. Yeah, I mean, this is, it's hard. I know it's hard for you guys to see because it's really tiny, but this is failing because it's basically giving me a ref and no type property. That's why this test is failing. So now what we can do is we can use the code we've written to make this pass. So if we continue, what we need to do is we need to modify this from JSON element to basically always keep track of the root element is what we need to do. So we are going to add a new parameter and we're going to call this JSON element, root element, like that. And And obviously that's going to break things because somewhere this code is being called and we've added a new param. Thank you, Copilot, for the XML comment there. Butterscotch. Do you think learning assembly is worth it? We have it as an elective course in the next semester. I'm sure it's worth it. You know, it's just a matter of like time and energy, right? But obviously for you, it sounds like you're going to have to learn it. But I'm sure you will be a better programmer for knowing it. You know, like it'll make you a better developer, a better programmer because you know assembly. I have no doubt about that. Maybe it feels a little unnecessary if you're gonna just basically do web development all your life, you know, but I'm sure it will improve your mental model of how computers work and how the code that you write at a high level actually translates to code at a low level. I would imagine it's super helpful if you're doing any kind of like performance optimization work. It's probably super helpful for that because you need to be able to really understand how the code that's written gets compiled and what actually ends up getting run on the machine. Okay, coming back up here. Yeah. So now what we need to do is we just need to fix up every place where we're calling from JSON element. We basically need to fix up so that we're passing in a root element too now. So what we'll do is we'll say var element equals node.deserialize JSON context dot default, I think is what we want there. Oh, and then we want .json element. And then we'll just replace this. And we'll say element. The element will basically get passed in. Yeah, it's basically going to get passed in twice. Which makes me beg the question, do I need to pass it in twice? And the answer is yes, because this from JSON element method actually ends up in a recursive call. And so if I just assume that the element that's been passed in is itself the root, I'm not going to end up being able to actually resolve a path that starts at the very top of that recursive call. So I need to actually very explicitly say this is the root element, and then I need to very explicitly pass it throughout all the recursion to make sure that we hold on to the top level element that we want to resolve paths against. I'm probably going to open this PR up, and the guy who authors this library is going to be like, "What the hell are you doing?" But at the very least, if I can get this working, this will at least solve my problem, which is what I care about the most. If it solves it for other people, great. But what I really care about is solving this for myself. We're close. We're close to getting there. So we need to find all the other references to from JSON element. Let's go to all the references. Looks like we have Gemini client test calls it somewhere. So this needs to now call. Oh my goodness, what is happening? Okay, so this is going to complain now. But I think I can fix this by just saying integer schema like that. I guess I could also make that property optional, but I just hate null checks, so we'll just say expected function .json schema. I will say, working in a vertical window is very constricting. Hello, honey. Are you awake? Oh yeah, I see you just took the trash out. Thanks for taking the trash out. I'm gonna wrap it up here in a minute and come upstairs. Alright, so we fixed that one. Fix that one. I think we fixed them all. I think we just need to go to object schema. So this is another place where that. Okay, so this is the place where the recursion starts. So we're gonna need to. This is a place where we need to keep track of the root. So in this case, we want a root element. And we're going to need to add that here. So we're going to need to say JSON element root element. So this way this way when we get into this recursive call stack, the root is really the root, and we're not just iterating successively down the object and losing track of that top level element. And then we also need to do the same thing for array schema. This is a similar problem where the only place array schema.create really gets called is from within this method. And so we need to make sure that we pass in a root element. We need to pass this down. Now, there's definitely a way you could do this a little bit differently if we weren't already using recursion. But since we're using recursion, this is the approach I'm going to take. Schema. And then I think the last place we need to fix it up is here. In this case, it's pretty easy. We just say schema. Somebody's still angry. Who's angry? There's no order. Oh, this is another place where we call it. So then this would be function schema. I think, right? Yeah, function schema. Like that. There's no argument. So now we need to pass that root element down to these calls. And I think with all that in place, what am I doing? I'm trying to make an improvement to a library that I'm using in one of my applications. I think I'm almost there, but we'll see. Let's go ahead and run all these tests and see if I broke anything. Okay, this one's still failing, but that one's still failing as expected. This one is still failing because I haven't actually made use of the root element. So I'm passing the root element through this recursive call stack, but I actually need to make use of it. So the way we're going to do that is we are going to add a check for whenever we find a ref property. So we'll say private const C# not have package management. Oh no, C# has package management for sure. C# has C# uses a package manager called NuGet, is the most popular one. There might be other ones out there, but NuGet's the one that almost everybody uses. I'm using a library called Gemini.net within my application, and Gemini.net is open source. So when I was using the Gemini.net library, I found a limitation in it, and so I've now forked that open source repository, and now I'm making a fix basically. So right now I'm implementing that fix. Then I'll open a PR, and hopefully somebody will merge it in, and then I can be one happy camper. So we're gonna say reference property name equals $ref. And then what I'm gonna do is, when I get here, before I ever look for a property, because before I ever look for a type property, if I look for a type property and the type property is not there, this piece of code is gonna throw. So before I ever get there, I'm gonna say if element dot try get property, because again I want to try and get the property, right? Because if I use a get property, my new code will throw, and then the rest of this code won't run. So I'm going to say try get property reference property name, and we're going to make the assumption that these properties are mutually exclusive, which they should be. If you have a ref property, you don't need to have a type property. So we'll say reference property, and then we will out var reference property. And then this is where we're going to make use of that root element. So what we'll say is var referenced element equals root element dot try get from reference, and we will say what will we say here? Actually, this is what we should do. We should say if root element dot try get from reference, and then we need to actually get that value. So we'll say var reference, or I guess var. Well, I guess we don't need that. We know if we were able to get the property, this is going to be a string, right? So if it's not a string, we're going to want to throw. So we'll say reference property get string, and then if we can't get it, we'll say out var referenced element. That. Why is this complaining? Possible null reference argument for parameter reference path in bool. Oh, that's kind of interesting. So should I not type this as nullable? Oh, they're saying, okay. No, this isn't going to return null. This is going to throw if it doesn't find it. But it says it's null. So I guess what I'll do is I'll say var property ref prop value. That's what I'll do, equals reference property. I'm so close again. I'm just gonna power through. So if we say if ref prop value is not null and root element ref prop value, like that, then we are going to get the referenced element, and then we're going to use that. We're going to say return from JSON elements referenced element, like that. And then we're just going to pass along the root. Cannot convert from this is so ugly. This code is so ugly. So if referenced element is not null, and but it's not null. Does that check not work like that? Hey Noku, how's it going? Potato, potato, every element in your JSON is now dynamic. Yeah, it's kind of a pain in the butt working with JSON in a strongly typed language. But it's necessary nowadays. Everybody uses it. Okay. So this is ugly, but if referenced element is not null, man, I'm about ready to make that non-nullable, honestly. So this is a type thing. This is a nullability thing. Okay, so I need to basically go back and change the return type or the out type of this. And I guess say new JSON element, I guess, like that. Yep. I'm so close. I'm so close. I've been at this for like 4 hours now, though. I probably need to take a break. That's probably the issue here. Tell me about it. Currently working on rebuilding my API library. I'm having to handle parsing JSON API responses in Dart, which is just a hassle. If I have a list of maps, I actually have to manually iterate through the list and explicitly turn everything into a map so I can then cast the list into a list of maps, even though it already was. Yeah, yeah, dynamic interrupting between dynamic and it, interrupting between dynamic data sources in a strongly typed language is kind of a pain in the butt. It really is. I don't feel like though this should be so what I'm struggling with should be so difficult. Argument cannot convert from type A to type B. Yeah. Let's see. Nullable JSON element to non-nullable JSON element. I don't know why. All right, I'm done. I'm gonna hop off here because this problem has taken enough of my morning. I'm close though. I think I'm probably another 30 minutes away from opening a PR probably. So I'm gonna jump off. I appreciate you guys all keeping me company. This was a long one. I'll be back tomorrow morning, and otherwise, I hope you guys are having a great start to your weekend. If it's Saturday for you, I hope you have a great rest of your Saturday. If it's Sunday for you, have a good rest of your Sunday. And otherwise, I'll see you guys in the next one. All right. Bye, y'all. Bye. See you guys.